Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crossland and Casey Campbell. Josh Birch is off tonight, but he will be recapping Moto 2 and Moto 3 via video that he sent in for this weekend's racing over there. But gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Casey. And Brandon, I see you're in a slightly different location than you're usually in. How are you? Brandon, can you hear me? Okay, it looks like we might have lost Brandon here. It looks like his picture is still moving. I'm not sure. Brandon is saying he can't hear us. Okay. I'm not sure. Casey, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Casey can hear me fine.
This is live, raw.
Yeah, I was concerned about internet. Apparently, we're having audio issues here. I'm not really sure what to do. We've never run into.
All right, I got you.
You got us now?
Well, I had you there for a moment.
You had me? Okay. All right. Well, Brandon's. We're gonna try to get that sorted out. In the meantime, Casey, we have some news in the Indy Lights series to discuss as well with the Chris Griffiths Memorial Test. So we're gonna send Brandon backstage. Hopefully, we can get this audio issue figured out before the Truck and Xfinity recap a little bit later on in the show. So Brandon, we'll say goodbye to you now, and hopefully we can get that resolved. But in the meantime, Casey, Indy Lights had their Chris Griffiths Memorial Test, like I was mentioning, for the Road to Indy drivers this weekend, and Daniel Frost was at the top of a leaderboard, which we'll pull up for you all right now. He established himself as potentially an early 2023 Indy Lights Championship favorite by setting the fastest time in both the morning and the afternoon sessions at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. You see right there in P2 was 2022 Indy Lights Rookie of the Year, Hunter McElroy. Ernie Francis Jr. rounded out the top three. So, Casey, when you look at this result sheet, what stands out the most to you from the test here?
Well, I think the HMD test cars are fast. There's 9 of them. We'll get to breaking down all the news and bits and pieces in just a moment. But yeah, overall, I think it's it really doesn't know. Just a test session is a test session. Obviously, we're going to learn a lot more. There's going to be more test sessions before the 2023 season begins. So I think we're gonna really kind of see if we look right there. 4 out of the top 5 are HMD cars. Of course, Hunter McElroy is in second, but a lot of guys have not been in these types of cars. So it's a learning process for everybody. I mean, you know, Nikki Hayes was I think in these types of cars, so I expect him to be up there with the Able Motorsports team. Josh Pearson spent all his time in sports cars last year as he makes his return to the Road to Indy, and then Jamie Chadwick, of course, coming from the W Series. Of course, this is her first time in these kinds of cars as well. So lots of things. Can you take away much from this? I don't know. But also it gives you a hint at what the lineups could look like for next year as well. There was some bit of news today. Actually, let's just break down all the news that the last time I was on here, there's been a lot of news. Yes, you can buy me a coffee too. So we confirmed the 6 drivers that were on the HMD lineup. There were more drivers confirmed as well, so let me take you through them all. You got Josh Green, you got Kiffin Simpson, of course, a Ganassi development driver. You have Daniel Frost, you have Christian Bogle, you have Christian Rasmussen, who comes over from Andretti. Of course, the two new drivers, you have Rasmus Lind and Josh Pearson. I'm forgetting somebody. It's not coming to me right now. Oh, yeah, it's still not coming. It'll come later. But I'm trying to think of the sixth driver that's going to be of the ones I just said. Of course, Josh Pearson and Nolan Siegel. Duh. Of course, I just named all of them. And also Ernie Francis Jr. is going to be also part of the HMD team. So he'll be driving part of the Force Indy partnership. Miles Rowe is going to have a similar partnership in the new USF Pro 2000. We'll get to more of that in a minute. So he'll be driving for Paps Racing, have some support from HMD as well. Yeah, it's part of good opportunity there. I'm going to maybe talk to Miles in a little bit. Maybe possibly this week. So we'll maybe get some more on that. USF 2000 news, a couple bits and pieces confirmed there as well. VRD adding to their lineup. Nikita Johnson, of course, is running for them in 2023. Sam Corey, of course, who was the runner-up in the USF Juniors Championship. He'll be continuing with Dan Mitchell and VRD. A little bit of cool announcement here. Not often do you see a pair of brothers going to be racing on there, but there will be. Meet the Ping brothers, of course, the Orlando brothers. We all know from the two brothers from New York. Now meet the Ping brothers from the great state of Georgia. So Noah Ping and Zach Ping, of course, we've talked to them on my channel. They're actually both going to be coming on Wednesday. Two of the nicest kids you'll ever meet. Noah's going to be running USF 2000 for VRD. And then, of course, Zach Ping, his younger brother. Noah's younger brother is going to be running in USF Juniors. By the way, USF Juniors is now a part of the new USF Pro Championships. There's been a big rebranding here, Ben. So the Road to Indy ladder is now, I'm calling it the full overall Road to Indy. It will always be the Road to Indy because it is the Road to Indy. Everyone's still trying to get to IndyCar. So it'll be USF Juniors, USF 2000, USF Pro 2000, followed by Indy Lights and IndyCar. Of course, the USF Pro Championships presented by Cooper Tires. Of course, all three series will run that tire compound. Of course, Indy Lights will be switching to the Firestone tire compound beginning in the 2023 season, which also, of course, began at the Chris Griffiths test this weekend. So, yeah, testing for all three series. We're going to obviously some more drivers are going to be confirmed as well. Of course, we also confirmed that Jacob Abel will be running full-time for his own team, and we might be talking with him at some point. We're going to have a lot of people. I'm going to have a lot of people to talk about here pretty soon. So stay tuned to my channel. Maybe stay tuned here on Grid too. You never know.
Well, of course, one other driver, I think you mentioned her very briefly there, Casey, was Jamie Chadwick. She was the slowest of the 16, as you see here on the timing chart, but it's important to remember she is driving a new car given or different from what she's used to, rather, in the W Series, where she's the three-time champion, the only champion that series has ever had. And, of course, the series' entire future is in doubt right now. We talked about that on the Women in Motorsports show late in the week last week. But, Casey, I want to ask you, when it comes to Jamie Chadwick, how would you rate her performance in this first test here? Are you a little bit concerned by her lack of pace relative to the other drivers in the test, or is that to be expected given a transition into an Indy Lights car?
I mean, it's to be expected, of course, but you never know what to expect because you're putting someone in a car that they've never been in. It's their first test session. All you're trying to do is learn what the series is. You can't just go in there and throw somebody in a car that they've never been in. I mean, obviously people from Formula One have gone. I mean, look how long it took Romain Grosjean to get used to IndyCar. Look how long it's taken, someone like Jimmy Johnson to get used to IndyCar those last few years. So it's good. There's going to be a transition period, and who knows what the future holds. From people that I've talked to, it looks usually what the Chris Griffiths test, it gives you a bit of a hint to what the lineup could look like this year. So it's I don't know what to think of that, but I think it's just a learning process, learning experience for sure. Lots of guys and gals are gonna do a lot of fun stuff this year. The off season's not that long. It's gonna be full of testing. It's gonna be full a lot of stuff. We talked to a lot of drivers throughout the last few months, so it's definitely gonna be more. We could have some more, especially this week. I think we might have an IndyCar driver coming on my channel tomorrow.
Well, we will definitely stay tuned for that, Casey. Thank you, as always, for the updates coming out of Indy Lights. I want to say hi to a couple of people in the chat room. Hi to Josh T., friend of Joshua Birch, watching on a 50-inch TV, crashed out on the sofa, duvet, and pillow as well, ready to watch Encore midnight in the UK. Good to see you in the chat room, Josh, as well as our own Adam Lemery. I'd love to see Jamie Chadwick in Indy Lights next year. I think we certainly all would, and I think we might have some news on that. Stay tuned. As Casey often says here on this channel, you just never know when news is going to break. But
can I hold on about that? I just want to make sure I get this in there. Since I'm kind of the fill-in, the silly season update kind of guy, you know how much I love that stuff. There is going to be some news this week in regards to the what the truck series could look like next year. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. There's going to be an announcement regarding a driver possibly driver going to GMS Racing in 2023. That will be held at the Daytona International Speedway at 4 p.m. Stay tuned on that one. And then Thursday, DGR will be having an announcement. They like to call this a major partnership announcement and possibly a rebranding change. So don't know what that is. I think if you've been following that, obviously if you've been following DGR, it's been reported that they are likely not switching, but going back to Toyota. So obviously more details to come on that. I think there's going to be a lot of things that you might not see coming with that one. So we'll discuss that. And as I always say on this show, stay tuned.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, Josh Birch is off tonight. It's a little bit early in the morning, as Josh T mentioned in the chat room as well. Of course, he usually is able to make the show. He wasn't available this evening, but he did send in a video recapping Moto 2 and Moto 3 as he's been recapping the last several weeks on this show. So here is Josh's recap of the Moto 2 and Moto 3 races at Malaysia.
Hello everybody, sorry I couldn't be with you tonight on the wrap-up show, but let's talk some Moto 3 and Moto 2. If you missed Malaysia, I've got you covered. Let's start off with Moto 3 as well, and from a British perspective, it couldn't have gone any better. Britain's John McPhee from Scotland, admittedly as well, let's not get any bias to think there as well, but he did absolutely fantastically, and we could not be more proud of him as well over here. Started 22nd on the grid after having a horrible season with his own crew chief conspiring against him, numerous amount of problems, injuries as well. He started 22nd on the grid here as well. He changed something in warm-up, and boy, did it help. He was running 6th on the last lap of the race, 2 corners before the end, had a spurt of energy, took the lead at the last corner, and won the Malaysian Grand Prix in Moto 3. An absolutely fantastic event. Second place was Sasaki as well. Sasaki doing fantastic, 0.048 behind him as well. One of the closest finishes in Moto 3 history. Second in the championship, Sergio Garcia rounded out the podium place as well with third. Juan Masia was fourth. Diego Monrella was fifth. And Dennis Foggia finished in 6th position. The top 6 separated by 0.3 of a second. Absolute insanity as well. Further back, Holgado was in that pack but dropped out early on in the race. Yakanama was battling with Ortella and Onshu throughout the race, as well as Artigas. Aizan Guevara was in the top fight and was leading at several points, but got forced onto the wet grass, nearly clashing with Dennis Onshu as well. And Guevara did very well not to have a high side and drift back onto the racetrack, so very well done for him there as well. Further down, Bartolini, Minio as well had an okay race, but Adrian Fernandez was the big shocker, dropping down into 15th position as well. And other big ones as well, Stefano Nepa and Scott Ogden crashing out at the start of the race as well, David Munoz as well, and Takuya Suzuki crashing out on the Leopold Racing was a big surprise well down at turn 9. That was all in the early stage of this Grand Prix, but Moto 3, as always, was providing quite a lot of action and anticipation as well. As we move over to Moto 2, if I'm trying to, because at the moment it says I've got no internet, I'm going to start with one of the bigger problems that we had actually with the Moto 2, and that was at the start of the race. Now, last time in Australia, we were talking to to you as well about the fact that the red flag didn't come out when a rider was seriously injured at the side of the track as well, where we had a similar situation here. Somkat Chantra crashed out. He dropped the front, hit Pedro Acosta at turn 1 as well, and Acosta's bike, as well as Acosta, ended up on top of Somkat Chantra. Now, everyone walked away from the scene okay, but it was a miracle that they did. I was very surprised that we didn't have a red flag situation right off the bat because of how dangerous it was of a situation and how, honestly, I was quite surprised that the red flag didn't come out. Everybody was thinking it as well. Luckily, everybody, I'm delighted to tell you, is okay, and I've just had it confirmed to me as well that they will be in Valencia, which is good news as well. As trying to get hold of the results is easier said than done on your devices as well. So maybe the MotoGP app needs to be getting back in force. But what I can say as well is now, finally, I've got them in front of me as well to give you the runners and riders who crashed out originally. Sanchez crashed out. He went off wide at the first corner. Chantra ended up onto the inside of Acosta. As I said, Acosta got back up again and went going, but then retired 9 laps into the race. Roberts and Vitelli crashed out as well, but Chantra was out of the race right from the start. But the race win, it was kind of boring after the opening lap, to be fair. It was a usual Moto2 race of just going forward. It was Tony Arbolino who took victory. Alonso Lopez was second, and Jake Dixon went into third position as well. Ayagura, by the way, was leading the race. He went for the move, and this would have given him the World Championship. Remember, the Moto2 World Championship has not been decided yet. It's between him and Fernandez as well. But unfortunately, coming into turn 9, Ayagura decided to make a move on the inside line. He was braking way too late. The back was stepping out. As soon as he tried to turn in with the back out, the front dipped as well, and it threw him off as well. So with 1 lap to go, he was out of the race, giving victory to Albarino. That was the exciting part towards the end of the race. That only happened in the last 3 laps. But the championship, unfortunately, has now gone from a 14-point advantage as well for Ayagura. It's now gone back to Fernandez by about 18 points. So it's going to be incredibly hard as well for that to be decided at the last race in Valencia. But Albarino winning, Lopez second, Dixon third, Fernandez in fourth, Augusto Fernandez in fourth position, having that championship advantage now. It's going to be a mighty good race when we go to Valencia, where Moto3's World Championship has already been decided. Moto2 and MotoGP will have their crowning glories in Spain on November the 6th.
Thank you for that, Josh. Now we'll move on to the NASCAR coverage from Homestead. And Ty Majeski picked up his second career win, also his second win in the last 3 races, to perhaps establish himself as the driver to beat when it comes time for Phoenix in 2 weeks. Majeski dominated the race's final stage, ending up with a margin of victory of just over 4.5 seconds ahead of Zane Smith. Brandon Crossland joins us once again. Brandon, first, before we get into it, can you hear us? And it looks like we may be having a similar audio issue. Brandon, do you have us? All right, well, we got it working a little bit earlier. So, Casey, we were going to go to you first here anyway. I'll throw the question over to you. Should Majeski be considered the championship favorite?
I think so. I mean, he's won 2 out of the last 3 races. So I would think so, as Brandon continues to get his audio fixed.
All right, I'm back. So sorry about that.
Hi, how's it going, bud? So
Hey.
yeah, I think Ty Majeski is gonna be a favorite. Obviously, when we picked our championship brackets, none of us had it in our championship brackets with Majeski, but a lot of, I think, ThorSport Racing is showing why they're the favorites to win. They got 2 of their trucks in. Obviously, we'll talk about that as well. But I just think that he right now, that 66 team is on it. That was, of course, the 13 team last year. So, yeah, I think he's definitely the threat to win. But you never know. You don't know, especially with this format. You don't know what is going to happen because the favorite sometimes doesn't always win. Look at the Phillies.
Hey guys, and really sorry there about the audio issues, but yes, I'm in Chattanooga. But yeah, should Majeski be considered the championship favorite after this past weekend? Absolutely, for sure. I think he's in good company, though, for some other favorites as well. And I'll be talking more about that later. But Ty Majeski had a really great outing at Homestead, and now he's headed to where we crown the championships these days at Phoenix. And I think it's going to be another track where it favors him as well. So look for Ty Majeski to be up front again, and he can just cruise his way to a championship.
Well, I appreciate the kind words about the Phillies, Casey. I know it's a big weekend for us here in Philadelphia with them going to the World Series later this week. Now, speaking of Majeski and ThorSport, his teammates set off some conspiracy theorists in the closing laps as Ben Rhodes was right on the championship 4 cut line. Rhodes was being closely pursued by both Matt Crafton and Christian Eckes, but while it appeared the 88 and 98 trucks were faster, neither one ended up passing Rhodes' 99, allowing the defending Truck Series champion to clinch a spot in the championship 4. Now, many believe ThorSport imposed team orders on Crafton and Eckes, preventing them from passing Rhodes to maximize Rhodes' points total, including Stuart Friesen, who was eliminated by just 1 point as a result. Take a listen to this.
You did everything you could do on the racetrack based on the position there at the end. How frustrating is that?
I didn't have a teammate that lay over and give me an extra point like they were doing in the back.
So what does that tell you about what Stuart Friesen thinks happened in the closing laps at Homestead? Brandon, we'll go to you first here, assuming we have your audio back again. Do you have a problem with Crafton and Eckes potentially not racing as hard as they could have?
Yes, I do. I do very greatly. I think that was blatant team orders without words, and I kind of figured out what the audio issue was there. It's whenever my mic is muted, it just my headphones decide to play dead. So we'll just take those off. Yeah, Crafton and Eckes were obviously doing some race manipulation there, and if this was not the last race before the championship race, they would have flew past Ben Rhodes. We all know that, and the fact that they weren't penalized is again another inconsistency. Somebody put a fake post out there of saying that they were penalized without saying it was satire. And it caused some trouble, but it was resolved. But that's as far as I'll go into that.
Oh, hi. So, I mean, obviously we won't know. Obviously we'll find out tomorrow. Of course, that's when the penalty report comes out. But yeah, I think Brandon said it best. I mean, did they do it? You be the judge of that. I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Well, you know, Brandon, I think I might have to disagree with you here a little bit. And it's not it's not that I disagree that there's a problem. Obviously, I have a problem with the racing that we saw, because you're right. Any other week, I think both the 98 and the 88 were faster and would have passed them had this been any other race. But I cannot fault ThorSport Racing or their drivers for doing what they did, or perhaps better, not doing what they did at Homestead this weekend. This is a system that has 3 or 4, depending on the series, separate cutoff rounds that create scenarios like this. And it's the same discussion that we had in the Cup Series a couple weeks ago at the Roval with Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer slowing up to give him a couple of extra points of insurance. Now, they did end up putting down a penalty there, so I'm with you on that. It's still the consistent inconsistencies. You could maybe argue that that's a little bit more blatant and maybe a little bit more dangerous to be slowing up and holding a competitor up braking early before the corner. But at the same time, I can just tell you, if I'm in Ben Rhodes' position, I wouldn't be happy if a teammate passed me in the closing laps and that gave me 1 fewer point and ended up costing me a shot at defending my championship. I wouldn't be happy with that at all. So while I understand that people don't like team orders, including myself, I'm not a huge fan of team orders in the slightest. I can't fault ThorSport for doing it. My fault is with the system that essentially forced them to go ahead and not make the pass that they would have made had it been any other race. So for me, NASCAR has kind of put the competitors in a box here. It's a situation where, you know, if Homestead were still the championship race and this was for a season-long championship, then I think it would be a little bit more understandable. You're not going to cost your teammate a championship fighting for 5th place in the closing laps of a season-long title battle. But when you have multiple different playoff rounds and multiple cutoff points, and we see this come up time and time again, we were showing replays of the Gibbs controversy at Martinsville a couple of years ago, and the Hendrick issue at Bristol last year with Chase Elliott messing with Kevin Harvick to help Kyle Larson. I just don't know that you can police these issues when you put these competitors in a box with a system that forces them to race like this in order to help their teammates out. Because again, if I were in Ben Rhodes' position and my teammate passed me in that situation, I wouldn't be happy at all. And I think there would be some words exchanged at the ThorSport competition meeting on Monday morning. So I'm not endorsing or supporting team orders at all. I think team orders, 999 times out of 100 are a terrible, awful thing for the sport in terms of a competition perspective. But at the same time, I can't really fault ThorSport for what they did or what they may have done here. I guess we'll never know for sure unless we get access to the full telemetry and everything. But I'm with you guys in that it certainly looks like they would have been able to fly right by Ben Rhodes had it been any other race. Of course, it's obvious why they didn't. And Casey, I guess, like you said, we'll see if any penalty reports come out. I'm not expecting them to, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that.
I just feel bad for Stuart Frieson's case. That's just tragic. 1 point out of the championship for 1 point. And you could see it in his face. He knew it was he knew there was team orders coming from ThorSport that cost him his shot at Phoenix. And again, yeah, you're revealing the lens here. It really is the inner cogs of this championship, this playoff format that cause things like this to happen, and it makes teams look bad for playing as a team and using manipulation to their advantage because they're allowed to do it. Unless NASCAR tells you you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, well, and I will say this. I don't think this is as egregious of a crime as Ferrari in Austria 2002 swapping the cars on the start-finish line, having Rubens Barrichello just give up the win to Michael Schumacher. But at least in Formula One, there's the consistency where every team, every constructor has exactly 2 cars, no more, no less. In this particular scenario here in the Truck Series, ThorSport is a multi-truck team, and that allowed Ben Rhodes to get some assistance from his teammates who were faster than him, probably could have passed him, certainly could have raced him a little bit harder there in the closing laps, but decided to give him a break. Stuart Friesen didn't have that. Stuart Friesen has a 62 truck that runs a handful of races with a different rotation of drivers. He doesn't have multiple teammates in that scenario to be able to help him out had he been in a similar case, and he ends up missing the championship 4 by 1 point. So again, what I think it comes down to is this is just another flaw in a heavily flawed system for determining a champion. But at the same time, I can understand why fans aren't happy with any sort of team order situation because, Brandon, like you mentioned, I think it does hurt the integrity of the sport when we have that.
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah. All right. Well, we are going to move on now. Obviously, like I mentioned, the championship 4 is set with Majeski, Rhodes, Zane Smith, and Chandler Smith. So, Casey, I'll go to you first. Very simple question. Who is your pick to win this year's Truck Series title?
Well, I'm going to go with the one that I picked in my points championship, which is worth points, but we also do playoff brackets. And I picked, at the beginning of this, I picked Ben Rhodes to win the championship. So I'm going to stick with him and see where it goes.
I like that. And despite what you might think I may pick, considering my super late model ties to Chandler Smith and Ty Majeski, both of them, I think I'm going to have to go with the one where this season all started with the win at Daytona. He's going to win at Phoenix because it all comes down to the surprise. It's going to be that 38 of Zane Smith taking the championship this year.
And I see we have Josh in the chat room saying he's picking Ben Rhodes. I am going to go ahead and say Ty Majeski. Like I said, and posing the question earlier, I think he has to be the championship favorite right now with how he's been running these last couple of weeks. He's just been on fire. He's turned that ThorSport team into true championship contenders, and he's turned himself into a championship contender. I think sometimes when you get hot at the right time, it can just allow you to go ahead and steal a championship with this format. He's gotten hot at the right time. He has all the momentum with him. So I'm picking Ty Majeski to take the Truck Series title. Now let's shift gears over to the Xfinity Series, and Noah Gragson did it once again, punching his ticket to the championship 4 on the Xfinity playoff bracket by winning the Homestead race, his 8th win of the season, 5th win in the last 8 races. Now Gragson joins his Junior Motorsports teammate Josh Berry in the championship 4 with 2 spots still up for grabs at Martinsville this weekend. Looking at Junior Motorsports' other 2 drivers, Justin Allgaier is the last driver safe from elimination at this moment, while Sam Mayer essentially finds himself in a must-win situation. So Casey, I'll go to you first for this one. Can Junior Motorsports lock out the championship 4 with all 4 of their cars?
With this format, anything is possible. It is. But yes, anything can and will be possible. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Junior Motorsports has been the top team in the series. Justin Allgaier, I think, can get in. And who knows if Mayer can have a solid run. I mean, I know he's really good at Bristol, but obviously everybody knows that. And he had a solid run at Martinsville last year. But can he have that car to win? Not sure. We'll have to see what I know he and Taylor Moyer have been working really, really good together this week. Obviously, knowing Sam as long as I have, nothing drives him more than a challenge. I think this is going to be a tough test for him, and I think it could be fun. But there's also, you got AJ Allmendinger, you also got Ty Gibbs and Austin Hill. Who knows? Ty Gibbs. Who knows with him what he might do? But to go back to your original question, do I think Junior Motorsports is going to lock it in? No.
Yeah, it really comes down to Austin Hill or Brandon Jones having a bad day at Martinsville, and then you got to somehow stop AJ Allmendinger from solidifying himself in the top 4, which I don't see happening. I think he's going to muscle his way in and stay in that championship 4 spot. He might be the bottom. He might be still where he remains now, the 4th spot in the running. But I think it's going to be hard to get past the 16 of AJ Allmendinger. Ty Gibbs might take the win. It might be Noah Gragson with his run, as the run he's been making so far, and his dominance. But wait, hold on. I got to stick with my pick for Josh Berry to win Martinsville. That's what I said at the beginning anyway. But he surprised us and took Las Vegas. But no, it's possible. But I think AJ Allmendinger is gonna stop them from doing that.
Well, it is important to remember that Martinsville, even back when Allmendinger was in the Cup Series with JTG Doherty, was arguably his best oval track. So if there's any track AJ could have handpicked this weekend to help his case for making the championship 4 that isn't a road course, I think Martinsville is definitely that track. And I think even if he doesn't win the race, he's probably still going to be able to run well enough that he can clinch one of those final spots. But I'll tell you, if Sam Mayer can pull off the victory and Allgaier can pick up a couple of points, particularly throughout the stages, it certainly is a possibility. Junior Motorsports has positioned themselves very, very well. They're already going to have 2 drivers going for the championship. At least they could have 3 and potentially maybe even 4. So we'll just have to wait and see on that front. Now, speaking of Junior Motorsports, earlier this week, it was announced that Josh Berry will return to the team in 2023. Brandon, I know you've been very vocal about Josh Berry's rise to where he is currently in this sport and the success that he's having. So how big of a deal is it that Berry was able to get this contract extension for next season?
Yeah, Ben, I don't want to be known as that Josh Berry fanboy on this show. So maybe after this season's over with, we'll stop the ringing on it. But that also means I have to stop bringing him up, I suppose. Yeah, Josh Berry getting that contract extension is huge because it shows that someone can come from the late model scene and not only get a shot at Xfinity, but also excel. And then he's going to get this continuation into next year, and because he's proven it, he's earned it. He's shown he's going to make his way, solidified himself into the championship 4 battle this year, and he certainly has the capability of doing it again in 2023. So I think this is a great move by Junior Motorsports to lock him in, make sure he doesn't go anywhere, and now he's going to be a teammate to Brandon Jones in the 9. So it's going to be a whole slew of things going on at Junior Motorsports next year, and it's going to be nice to keep Josh Berry there in that 8 car.
I think Josh Berry's success is a great thing for not just him, of course, but for anybody that's come up through his path, and it's shown that there is still a way forward, even though it might not be as easy as it once was for late model drivers to have success in this sport and compete at the top level. And I think Dale Jr.'s even said himself, you might just see Josh Berry racing on Sundays in a couple of years time. So we'll just have to wait and see. But in the meantime, great things happening for Josh Berry in 2023. And he could go into 2023 as the defending Xfinity Series champion with how he's been running recently. So we'll see what happens at Phoenix in a couple of weeks. As for right now, though, we're coming up on the end of the show. A bit of a shorter show this evening with everything going on. But Casey, I want to pitch this question to you first. Obviously, of course, it's time for the one shining moment. So what is your one thing that stood out to you from this motorsports weekend?
I got to give a shout out. My one shining moment is Homestead-Miami Speedway. This is the first time in a little under 2 years that they've hosted a NASCAR race weekend. First time since 2020 that they've hosted the trucks, and for the first time since 2019, they were able to be since the championship race in 2019, they were able to have a full capacity crowd. So it was good to see that place filled up. Homestead-Miami Speedway, one of my favorite racetracks. Yeah, might as well bring. I don't know if the championship's going back there. I kind of have an idea of where it might go, but I know if a lot of people keep saying it, it's going to happen. Usually that's how it works. But credit to Al Garcia, the track president, and everybody at Homestead-Miami. For an awesome race weekend. And so Homestead-Miami Speedway is my one shining moment for this week.
I have to second that. Homestead-Miami had a great crowd there for the Cup Series race, at least. And it was, it's amazing how long it's been since we've been able to enjoy something at Homestead. And as much as we gripe and groan of wanting it to be the championship track again, as it seems to be the most well-rounded mile and a half, quite literally and also figuratively on the calendar, it just makes logical sense to have your championship race there. Curious to see what you got in the pipeline, Casey, what you know about, but I guess Homestead's my one shining moment. I also really like seeing the crowds at COTA this weekend for Formula One. That was also very impressive.
Well, I'm going to make it unanimous. You guys stole mine. Great to see racing again at Homestead-Miami Speedway. I think arguably the best intermediate track in NASCAR, and I think it's a crying shame, but it's not the championship race anymore. I think a lot of people are hopping on that train as well, so who knows? I know there are some people that like the idea of a rotating championship. Others think it should be in the same place every year, but with no disrespect to the fans in Arizona, I think Homestead is probably the more ideal place to hold the championship for a weekend at this point with the racing that we've seen the last couple of years, especially. I know Adam is in the chat room here agreeing with us. Awesome racing at Homestead-Miami Speedway. And Josh T, I know, Brandon, you were mentioning the Formula One weekend a little bit. His one shining moment, the flying Alpine and the stupidity from Lance Stroll. And I've got to say, after we went off the air last night, I was singing praises to Alpine's name for the fact that not only was Fernando Alonso able to stay in the race, but that they got the car back up into the points. Haas file a protest, and now we find out that Alonso's fallen from, I think it was 7th to 15th or something like that, with a stop-and-go time penalty, which equates to 30 seconds when it's issued after the race. And I think, once again, another example of Formula One being over-regulated and, a penalty that probably should have been issued during the race if it was going to be issued at all. But that's a discussion for another day. This is the one shining moment. That is not a shining moment in my mind, so we'll just leave that alone as for right now. But I will second what you say there, Josh. It was very impressive that they were able to get that car back into the race and back up fighting, at least temporarily, in the points. So, we'll see. It was ironic, though, but it was Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, their teammates next year. So we're going to have to watch out for that.
I want to try to throw a very weak pun in there. And they said Alpines couldn't fly. Like airplane. Get it? Okay.
Nice.
No.
Took me a second, but I
did like the social work on it, though, with saying the car kind of looked like he was on a horse going, nay. And look, the stereotype of Austin, Texas, it kind of summed it up.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we can joke about what happened now and everything, but we do have to be thankful
very
that
scary,
it could have been a lot worse than it was, and again, just amazing that what I find amazing is that car was able to continue in the race, but Carlos Sainz spun in the first corner, and apparently there was a water leak or something, and he had to retire. So that one little spin caused a retirement for Ferrari, but the Alpine got halfway up into the air. If it had caught a little bit more air, it probably would have flipped over like Mark Webber did in 2010, and obviously that would have been the end of Fernando Alonso's race, but they got the car back into the race, and again, temporarily up into the points. So a massive effort for the Alpine team, even though there was that penalty issued there at the end. So we'll see. What was that, Casey?
Good old Ferrari. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I'm with you there. It's just typical typical Ferrari. I think, it's not even a surprise at this point. Red Bull, deservedly the Constructors champions this year, and obviously Max Verstappen's had a phenomenal season. So more on Formula One, of course, on the pre-race and wrap-up shows most weekends as well. And that's going to do it for the Encore show here tonight. So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the Grid Network YouTube channel if you aren't already, and follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're also streaming our shows on Twitch and LinkedIn as well. If you really like what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show to invest in our Patreon. Consider helping Grid Network stay on the air throughout 2022 and beyond. And thank you as always to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have continued to support us. Your support means the world to us. It allows us to attend the odd race here and there and continue to be on the air throughout the rest of this season and going into next season. We've got some big things planned, so stay tuned for that. If you would rather make a one-time donation, of course, you can always buy me a coffee. I know Casey said he'd appreciate one earlier in the show, so that is also an option for you as well if you'd rather support us with just a one-time donation. Finally, thanks as always to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDnet in the link below and on the screen gives you $5 to invest. Public.com and allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, on Wednesday, as always, Kobe Lambeth will bring you Grid Tonight with Joshua Birch. Joe Samaniego hosts the Women in Motorsports program on Friday with Daniel Zeri. And as always, you can stay tuned for more Grid coverage throughout the weekend with the pre-race wrap-up and Encore shows. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we sign off for this evening?
Got some Xfinity news, some bits and pieces. Nick Sanchez will be in the 48 this week. Sammy Smith will be in the 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing for the last 2 races of the season. And Blaine Perkins will be in the 02 this week for Our Motorsports. Also, Brandon Brown will be in the 08 for SS Greenlight Racing this week at Martinsville. So fun stuff there.
Big.
Yeah.
And I believe the modifieds are back this weekend in Martinsville too. Is that correct?
The championship race this weekend.
That's
so
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
we might have to cover that on the Encore show.
That's worth the price of admission right there. Modifieds at Martinsville. Let's go.
Yeah, 4 drivers within 13 points of each other. I just got done with talked with Clay Campbell, the track president of Martinsville Speedway. No relation, by the way. But yeah, it's going to be a very, very exciting weekend. Thursday night, it's going to be on it'll be on Flow Racing, and you can hear it on MRN. So fun stuff there. So
Yeah.
Did you say 4 drivers within 13 points of each other?
I did.
See, you don't need a playoff system. That's a full season, and we have 4 drivers going for a championship. All right, just had to throw that in there to close the show out. All right, for Brandon Cross and Casey Campbell. Thank you, as always, to Joshua Birch as well for sending that video in. I'm Ben Schneider. We will see you next time right here on Grid Live Encore. Stay tuned for more Grid coverage throughout the rest of the week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.